I want you to picture a conversation. It's happening right now, in coffee shops in London, in quiet bars in Chicago, in living rooms across Berlin. It is a conversation between men who have seen it all, men in their 60s, successful men, stable men, men who have played by the rules their entire lives. And every single one of them is saying something that would absolutely terrify their families if they heard it. They look me in the eye and they say, I would rather die alone than date again. Now, before you react, pause. These aren't the words of angry, bitter men screaming at the internet in their basements. These are not men who can't get a woman. These are men who have been married, men who raise children, men who built businesses, men who know exactly what it takes to maintain a relationship. They aren't walking away because they are broken. They are walking away because they finally did the math. For the first time in their lives, they sat down and calculated the actual cost of companionship. They looked at the return on investment, and when they saw the numbers, what they have to give up versus what they actually get in return in the modern dating market, the answer was undeniable. If you are a man watching this, and you felt that strange sense of relief when you're alone, or that hesitation when someone tells you to get back out there, you are not crazy, you're not broken, you're evolving. Today, we are going to break down the calculation that society refuses to talk about. We are going to look at why the smartest men are choosing solitude over the chaos of modern relationships, and I'm going to show you why dying alone isn't the tragedy people think it is. It might actually be the ultimate form of freedom. Let's go back to why you're conflicted. You remember the fantasy, right? We all do. When you were 25 or maybe 30, the drive for a relationship wasn't just a want, it was a biological need. It felt like oxygen. You looked at couples and saw the dream, the partnership, and the team, the idea of building a legacy. Back then, you viewed a relationship as an asset, something that added value to your life. You thought, I provide security, she provides peace. I provide structure, she provides warmth. It was supposed to be a symbiotic exchange, a shelter from the storm. So you bought in, you paid the price of admission, and you paid it gladly. Maybe you were married for 20, 30 years. You did the heavy lifting. You were the provider, the protector, the stoic rock. You absorbed the stress of the world so your family wouldn't have to. You woke up at 5 a.m. to go to jobs you hated, simply because the mortgage needed to be paid and the kids needed braces. You compromised your own needs daily to keep the peace. You swallowed your pride. You apologized when you weren't wrong. You worked overtime to pay for vacations you didn't even enjoy because you were too exhausted to be present. You drifted away from your own friends because you didn't like them. You gave up your motorcycle, your woodshop, or your quiet Sunday mornings because the family schedule demanded your total submission. You did it because you believed in the contract. You believed that if you sacrificed enough, if you gave enough of yourself away, you would be rewarded with loyalty, respect, and a partner who had your back when the world got heavy. But then, the contract ended. Maybe it was a divorce where you lost half of what you spent a lifetime building, watching your retirement accounts get slashed in half by a gavel strike. Maybe she passed away. Maybe it just dissolved into apathy. However it happened, you found yourself on the other side, and this is where the math starts. Suddenly, the noise stopped. The constant low-level anxiety of managing another person's emotions evaporated. You woke up one morning, made your coffee, and realized it was quiet. Not lonely quiet, peaceful quiet. The air in your house felt lighter. You started to look at your resources, your time, your money, or your emotional energy, your sanity. For decades, these resources were being taxed at a rate of 80 or 90%. Every dollar you earned had a destination before it even hit your account. Every hour of your weekend was allocated to someone else's desires. Now you keep 100%. This is the moment the calculation changes. You realize that in your 60s, a relationship is no longer an asset class. In the modern world, for a man of your age and status, a relationship is almost exclusively a liability. It's a depreciation of your hard-earned peace. When you look at what it costs to bring a new woman into your life now, into your sanctuary, the ledger bleeds red. You aren't looking for a mother for your children anymore. You aren't looking to build an empire. You've already done that. So what is the value proposition society tells you? Companionship, intimacy, someone to travel with. But you, the man who has lived through the reality, you know the price tag for that companionship? You know that companionship often comes with a mortgage of your freedom, and the price is inflated to a level that is frankly insultingly high. Let's talk about the mechanism of returning to the market. Let's say you ignore your gut. Let's say you listen to your sister or your married friends who say, You just need to put yourself out there. You're a catch. So you enter the modern dating arena. Gentlemen, if you haven't dated in 20 years, welcome to hell. It is not meeting a nice lady at the church potluck anymore. It is not catching eyes with someone at the grocery store. It is the digital meat market. You download the apps. You, a man who has led companies, raised productive citizens, and navigated complex life challenges, are now reduced to a 3-inch photo on a screen. You're forced to summarize your 60 years of existence into a 300-character bio, trying to sound fun but not desperate, successful but not arrogant. You are swiped left or right by someone who is judging you based on your height, your hairline, or your shirt choice in 2.5 seconds. The indignity of it is staggering. You're competing with 500 other men for the attention of a woman who is, quite frankly, often bringing very little to the table other than her presence. And when you finally get a match, you aren't having a conversation. You are auditioning. She doesn't ask you about your thoughts, your history, or your passions. She interviews you. Do you own your home? Are you retired? Do you like to travel? Which really means, will you pay for me to go to Italy? You're 60 years old, and you're being asked to dance like a court jester to entertain someone. You have to be witty enough to keep her attention, rich enough to meet her standards, available enough to fit her schedule, but detached enough not to seem clingy. You go on the date. You sit across from a woman who is also in her 60s, and what do you find often? You find someone who hasn't done the work you've done. She has a checklist, a list of requirements that rivals a corporate merger contract. She wants a man who is financially established, which is code for confund the lifestyle I feel I deserve in retirement. She wants a man who's emotionally available, which is code for will. Listen to me vent about my past trauma and my children's drama for hours without offering solutions. She is looking for a utility. She isn't looking for you. She is looking for a role filler. She needs a travel companion who pays. She needs a handyman to fix her deck, and she needs a therapist to validate her feelings. She needs a +1 for weddings so she doesn't look alone to her friends. And what is she offering in return? Companionship. That's the sales pitch. But is it companionship or is it supervision? Because the moment you let someone new into your life, the audition turns into the renovation. She walks into your home, the home you finally arranged, exactly how you like it, and the critique begins. Why is that chair there? It's ugly. We need to change these curtains. They're depressing. You spend too much time in the garage. Who was that texting you at 8 p.m? You realize that by dating, you're essentially applying for the job of being managed again. You are volunteering to surrender your autonomy to someone who hasn't earned the right to lead you. You look across the table at this stranger who expects you to impress her, checking her watch, judging your shoes, and you think, I've worked for 40 years. I've answered to bosses, to clients, to the government, and to my ex-wife. I'm finally the CEO of my own existence. Why in God's name would I hire a new manager who I can't even fire without losing half my stuff? This brings us to the cost that nobody ever puts on the receipt, the emotional tax. When you were young, your testosterone blinded you to this tax. You were biologically programmed to tolerate it. But now, the fog has cleared, and you can see exactly what you were paying. You remember the walking on eggshells, don't you? The specific sound of a cabinet door closing a little too hard the hat told you the evening was ruined. The heavy sigh from the other room that was designed to make you ask, what's wrong? The silent treatment that required you to play detective for 3 days to figure out what crime you committed, the mental energy spent calibrating your own mood to ensure you didn't trigger hers. You became a seismologist, constantly monitoring for tremors in her emotional landscape. Terrified of the earthquake? This is emotional labor. It is a full-time job with no vacation days. Every relationship requires you to be the emotional shock absorber. When you are single, if you have a bad day, you come home, you sit in silence, you process it, maybe you watch a movie or stare at the ceiling, and it's over, you reset. When you're in a relationship, if you have a bad day, you have to manage her reaction to your bad day. You can't just be tired. You have to explain why you're tired so she doesn't think you're mad at her. Or, if she had a bad day, your peace is held hostage until her crisis is resolved. Your evening is no longer yours. It belongs to her problem. Men in their 60s are tired. Not physically tired, many of you are in the best shape of your lives. Hitting the gym, eating right, you're soul tired. You're tired of the psychological gymnastics required to keep a woman happy. You've realized that the modern definition of a good partner often means a man who has no boundaries and infinite patience for manufactured drama. And let's be honest about the nature of that drama. It's rarely life or death. It's usually social friction, gossip, perceived slights from a cashier, or anxiety about things that haven't happened yet. And you are expected to fix it, not by offering solutions. God forbid you offer a solution. Then you're not listening. You're expected to fix it by absorbing it, by letting her dump that toxic energy into your system so she feels better. But where does that energy go? It stays in you. It raises your cortisol. It kills your peace. And here is the kicker. The drama doesn't stop with her. At this age, you aren't just dating her. You are dating her baggage. You are dating her adult children who can't hold down a job and need a loan. You are dating her ex-husband's financial mess that she's still entangled in. You're dating her health issues and her medications. You're taking on a web of obligations that you did not create. Why? For sex. Let's be honest. It's great. But is it worth your peace? Is it worth your freedom? Is it worth the anxiety of wondering if you're going to get yelled at because you bought the wrong brand of almond milk for someone to ace? How was your day? You can call a friend for that. You can talk to your dog for that. The dog is actually happy to see you and doesn't care if you're rich. The price of admission for intimacy has become too high. The juice is no longer worth the squeeze. You look at the tax bill of emotional labor and you realize you've been overpaying for decades, and now you're auditing the system and your closer will visiting the account. Now, I want to reframe something for you that the medical industry creates billions of dollars trying to hide. Society tells you that your declining testosterone is a problem. Turn on the TV, open a magazine, and you're bombarded with ads for low T centers, blue pills, and supplements designed to get you back in the game. They treat your natural evolution like a disease. They want you to believe that if you aren't chasing women with the voracious appetite of a 20-year-old, you're somehow broken. But what if, and hear me out, what if that decline is actually a gift? What if it isn't a bug in the system, but a feature, a biological software update designed to finally give you clarity? Think back to when you were 20 or 25. You were a slave to your hormones. You were chemically intoxicated. Your biology was screaming at you to reproduce, to pair bond, to tolerate anything just to get access to intimacy. You remember the women you chased back then, the ones you knew were trouble, the ones who disrespected you, played games, or brought chaos into your life. You saw the red flags. They were the size of billboards, but you ignored them. Why? Because your testosterone hijacked your judgment. Your chemistry overrode your logic. You were literally drugged by your own body to ensure the survival of the species, even at the cost of your own sanity. But now that biological override is gone. The fog of war has lifted. For the first time in your adult life, you can see the battlefield clearly. You can finally see women for who they actually are, not what your hormones want them to be. You can look at a beautiful woman, appreciate her beauty because you aren't dead. You still have eyes, but in the same split second, you can evaluate her without the desperate filter of lust. You ask the questions you never asked before. Is she high maintenance? Is she kind, or just acting kind? Does she bring peace to my table, or does she just bring an appetite? Is the conversation actually interesting, or am I just enduring it to get to the bedroom? And because your brain isn't flooded with the chemical need to conquer, you can make a purely rational decision. This isn't a defect. This is wisdom. This is the post-clarity state of existence. You're finally thinking with the big head, not the little one. And the big head is a ruthless accountant. It looks at the woman who demands your time, your money, and your emotional bandwidth, and it runs the numbers. It sees the manipulation tactics that used to work on you, the pouting, the withholding of affection, the subtle guilt trips, and it just laughs. It says, insufficient funds, access denied, not interested. This creates a superpower that terrifies the modern dating market indifference. There is nothing more powerful in a negotiation than the ability to walk away without looking back. When you don't need what she is selling, she has no power over you. This is why it baffles women. They are used to men being easily manipulated by beauty or the promise of intimacy. They have spent their entire lives knowing that if they smile a certain way or dress a certain way, men will crumble. When you, the older or wiser man, look at them with that calm analytical gaze and simply say no thanks, it short-circuits their understanding of the world. They panic. They call you commitment phobes. They call you bitter. They call you emotionally unavailable. No, you aren't unavailable. You are just finally available to yourself. You've realized that sexual intimacy is a depreciation asset. It fades with time, but peace, autonomy, dignity, those are appreciating assets, and you're no longer willing to trade the gold of your peace for the copper of temporary pleasure. You aren't suffering from low libido, you are benefiting from high clarity. And that is a trade every wise man should be happy to make. Let's talk about what you're protecting. Let's talk about this loneliness that everyone warns you about. Because from where you are standing, and it doesn't feel like loneliness, it feels like sovereignty, there is a profound addictive pleasure in waking up in a house that operates exactly on your schedule. You open your eyes, no one is sighing next to you, no one is rushing you. You make your coffee, you drink it while looking out the window for 20 minutes. You don't have to speak. You don't have to listen to a recount of a dream someone had. You don't have to plan the day's logistics. The silence is not empty. It is full of possibility. Your money is yours. If you want to spend $500 on a new tool, a fishing trip, or a rare bottle of scotch, you just do it. There is no consultation. There is no passive-aggressive comment about wasting money. You're no longer an ATM for someone else's desires. You're the sole beneficiary of your own labor. Your time is yours. This is the most precious resource you have left. You have fewer days ahead of you than behind you. Why would you spend a single Saturday afternoon at a craft fair you hate? Why would you spend another Thanksgiving listening to in-laws you despise when you are single? Your time is protected. You can read a book for 6 hours. You can work on your car, you can nap. You can stare at the wall. It is your life. You have rediscovered hobbies you abandoned 30 years ago because you didn't like them. You have reconnected with old friends who are phased out because you didn't get along with their wives. You are sleeping better. Your blood pressure is down. You realize that for years, your body was in a constant state of fight or flight because of relationship stress. Now that the stressor is removed, you're physically healing. This isn't a sad existence. This is the victory lap. You earned this. You paid your dues to society. You raised the kids, paid the taxes, supported the economy. This phase, this is for you. Of course, the world won't let you enjoy this easily. You will face pressure. Your family doesn't understand. Your kids might look at you with pity. Dad, don't you want someone to grow old with? They're projecting their own fears onto you. They are terrified of being alone, so they assume you must be too. But the worst pressure comes from your married friends. Have you noticed this? The guy who complains about his wife every time you have a beer. The guy who looks miserable. The guy who has to text checking in every hour. He is the main one telling you to date. You gotta get back out there. Man, it's no good being alone. Why does he say that? Because misery loves company. Your freedom is an insult to his captivity. When he sees you traveling where you want, spending your money how you want, looking relaxed and happy, it forces him to question his own compromises. It is easier for him to label you as sad and lonely than to admit that he is jealous of your peace. They will try to use fear against you. Who will take care of you when you're sick? Let's be real about this. First, marriage is no guarantee of care. Plenty of men get sick and find their wives resent the burden. Second, with the money you save by not dating, by not paying for dinners, vacations, gifts, and divorces, you can hire the best professional care in the world, care that doesn't resent you, care that you pay for. Relying on a romantic partner to be your nurse is a strategy, but it's a risky one. Building your own financial fortitude is a better one. So let's confront the ultimate bogeyman, the phrase that ends the conversation, I'd rather die alone. Society treats dying alone as the ultimate failure. Like if there isn't someone holding your hand at the very end, your life didn't matter. But let's look at the alternative. Is it better to die in a house full of tension? Is it better to live your final 10 or 15 years in a state of compromise, negotiation, and stress, just to have a witness at the very end? Or is it better to die alone? Meaning in your own space, surrounded by the things you love, in a piece you created, with your dignity intact. Alone is a physical state. Lonely is an emotional state. You can be deeply, painfully lonely while lying in bed next to your wife of 30 years. In fact, that's the worst kind of loneliness, the loneliness of being misunderstood and undervalued in your own home, walking through the woods by yourself. That's not loneliness. That's solitude. Reading a book in a quiet armchair. That's not loneliness. That's intellectual freedom. The men who are saying I'd rather die alone are really saying I would rather die free. They are saying that the trade-off is no longer acceptable. They are saying that they value their own company enough to not dilute it with mediocrity. If you are watching this, and you have been feeling guilty about your lack of desire to date, stop. You have reached a level of existence that most people are too afraid to touch. You have stepped off the treadmill. You have looked at the carrot on the stick, the promise that a woman will complete you. And you realized you are already complete. You aren't giving up on life. You are taking ownership of it. You are choosing quality over quantity. You are choosing reality over fantasy. You're choosing yourself. The next time someone asks you why you aren't dating, you don't have to explain the math. You don't have to justify your peace. Just smile. A calm, knowing smile, because you know something they don't. You know that the greatest relationship you will ever have in the final chapter of your life is the one you have with yourself. And for the first time in history, you are finally treating that relationship with the respect it deserves. You're not wrong, you're free.